Right now, 15 armed neighbors are marching up my driveway, and my coffee is still hot in my hand. Their plastic rifles and shiny knockoff badges catching the early light like they actually mean something. And my name is echoing across the ranch like a death sentence. At the front of this homemade SWAT team is our HOA president, Marissa Grant, yelling through a bullhorn that I am under citizen's arrest, that I stole from her community, that I am going to be taken down. What she does not know, what none of them know, is that I am not just the idiot who bought the bankrupt ranch they wanted. I am the federal agent who has been quietly digging through her books for 18 months, and the old barn behind me is hiding a trap I spent 2 months building just for this moment. My name is Ethan Cole, and if you had met me 3 months earlier, you would have thought I was just some guy going through a midlife crisis, buying 840 acres of broken fences and rusted roofs on the edge of a fancy gated neighborhood called Willow Ridge Estates. But the truth is that ranch was never about cattle or sunsets. It was about missing money and a homeowners association president who liked to play God. Willow Ridge is one of those places where every lawn is the same shade of green. Flags are perfectly aligned at the same height. And people talk about protecting property values. Like it is a religion, you know what I mean. And right at the center of all that was Marissa walking around in designer suits with a binder of rules thicker than a Bible and a smile that never reached her eyes. The first time I saw her, really saw her, it was a little after 6 in the morning. The kind of quiet where you can hear sprinklers clicking and birds waking up. And I was at my fence with a travel mug, pretending to be absorbed in the view, while I was actually watching my new neighbors, like they were part of a crime scene. Across the street from the gate, this older guy, retired Marine type, still in his robe, was standing on his porch with a faded American flag in his hands, and Marissa marched up his walkway in heels, like she owned the concrete, one hand already digging in her folder. "Mr. Lawson," she said, voice sharp but sweet. "Your flag violates Section 3C. The colors are faded. That is a $500 fine, due in 10 days. He blinked at her, looked down at the flag like maybe his eyes were wrong, then said quietly, "Ma'am, that flag flew over my base in Afghanistan." She did not flinch. "And now it is an eyesore," she replied, shoving the paper at him. "Replace it or pay the fine. This community has standards." Watching his shoulders drop as he took that notice. Watching a man who had probably faced actual gunfire fold in front of a woman with a clipboard. Something in me twisted, and I took a slow sip of coffee just to keep from walking over there and flashing a badge on the spot. After that, I saw her everywhere. A single mom down the road getting slapped with a $250 penalty because her kid left a bicycle in the driveway for a weekend. An older couple threatened with a lien because their holiday lights were still up on January 2nd. Letters piling up in mailboxes with words like violation and non-compliance that made people's hands shake while they opened them. But here is the hook that kept everyone quiet. Property values were climbing the lawns, looked beautiful. Houses sold fast, and as long as people's equity kept going up, they swallowed the fear and wrote the checks. On paper, my job was simple track money that disappeared between HOA accounts and contractors. Follow it until it hit a personal pocket, but you cannot exactly roll into a tight-knit neighborhood. Flash your federal ID and ask to see their books. So on the day Red Creek Ranch went to auction, I walked into that courthouse wearing jeans, boots, and a cheap flannel. Like every other guy who ever thought he could fix his life with land. Marissa was there too, sitting in the front row of the auction room with her lawyer and 2 board members, a glossy portfolio on her lap, labeled Willow Ridge Expansion, smiling like the deed was already engraved with her name. When the bidding started on the old ranch, a few speculators poked at the price, but everyone kept glancing at her, like they were just doing a warm-up show, until the queen raised her paddle, and when she finally did at around 200 grand, the room relaxed. Like there it is, order restored. That was when I lifted my paddle and said, 250. The air shifted. You could feel 20 sets of eyes slide off Marissa and land on me like I had just farted in church, and she tilted her head, gave me this polite little smile that said, "Do you know who you are playing with?" We went back and forth for a few minutes, her lawyer whispering numbers at me, pretending to think harder than I actually was, until the auctioneer slammed the gavel and said, "Sold 280,000 bidder, 34. That was me. As I walked past her deed packet in my hand, her husband touched her arm, like he was trying to keep a lid on a boiling pot, but she shook him off and leaned in, just enough for only me to hear it. "You just made a very expensive mistake, Ethan. You have no idea what you took from this community." I smiled like an oblivious outsider and said, "Guess I will find out." But inside, I was filing away her choice of words, that sense of ownership over something that had never truly belonged to her, and thinking, you have no idea who you just threatened. Moving on to that ranch felt like stepping onto a chessboard where somebody had already decided I was the villain. The property itself was rough fences, leaning an old metal barn, sagging a grain silo buried under it, that most folks in Willow Ridge probably did not even know existed. But when I climbed down there the first time, and my flashlight hit those 12-foot concrete walls, I did not see abandoned storage. I saw possibility. My cover story said I was trying to fix the place up, so I poured a new slab in the barn, brought in a contractor friend who owed me a favor, and did not ask why I needed hydraulic equipment rated for several £1,000s. Wired the place with cameras, mics, emergency lights, ventilation, all hidden under the skin of a simple ranch renovation. The idea was never to hurt anybody. I am not into Saw movie stuff. The idea was to build a safe, controlled way to hold people who thought they were in charge long enough for them to hear what the law actually says about their little power trip. While I worked, Marissa started her campaign against me. She sent the first letter a week after I moved in. Notice of violation. Your perimeter fencing is rusted and negatively impacts community aesthetics, recommended for $750. I remember standing on my porch reading that and just laughing like, "Lady, your HOA line stops 2 miles before my driveway." But I did not argue. I slid it into a file folder labeled Evidence and waited. The second letter was nastier. Failure to comply with HOA recommendations may result in legal action, including property liens, which was a cute threat considering she had zero legal reach onto my land. I kept those too. Meanwhile, she started working on the neighbors, telling them the ranch had been earmarked for Phase 2 of Willow Ridge. Big plans, increased values, community amenities, and that I had swooped in and stolen their future. Suddenly, at the diner, people were pointing at me like I was a thief. At the gas station, I heard, "There goes the guy who screwed us." And yeah, it stung because I was literally there to protect them. And the only person they were afraid of was the one wearing a blazer and heels. The night I realized just how far Marissa was willing to go, I was in the barn watching feeds from cameras we had quietly set up around Willow Ridge, and I saw cars pulling into the community center parking lot. Way later than any yoga class should ever be. Pickup trucks, SUVs, people in dark clothes getting out. And there she was under a streetlight, in a black tactical vest that said sheriff, in bright yellow letters that looked like they had been printed at Office Depot, clipboard in hand. Around her, about 15 neighbors were struggling into mismatched gear, some in paintball masks, some in helmets. Too big for them, a couple carrying airsoft rifles with the orange tips half painted over. Like that was going to fool anybody who had ever seen a real weapon. And she was pacing in front of them, voice sharp and electric, saying, "Our bylaws grant us community safety powers. This man has illegally acquired land meant for Willow Ridge expansion. We are authorized to detain him until the sheriff's department arrives." One guy, Todd, with his vest on backward and his radio tuned to what sounded like classic rock, raised his hand like a kid in class and said, "Are we actually allowed to arrest someone?" And she cut him off with, "If we do nothing, our property values tank. If we act, we send a message. Which side are you on?" I sat there in the half-dark barn, listening to her twist fear into permission, and I felt this slow, heavy anger settle into my chest. Not the hot kind that makes you do something stupid, but that cold kind that says, "All right, you pick the game, now we play it." So here we are, back to that morning. Their little convoy turning down my dirt road in a cloud of dust, 4 trucks and a black van lined up like they practiced it. And I am on my porch again, same mug, same view. But this time my heart is beating a little faster because I know how fast something fake can turn fatal when people forget it is fake. Marissa steps out first. Bullhorn in one hand, face set in that practiced righteous anger expression she uses at meetings, and she yells, "Ethan Cole, step out where we can see you. You are under citizen's arrest for theft, fraud, and crimes against the Willow Ridge community." Her officers start spreading out trying to look tactical, but one helmet keeps sliding down. Someone else is tripping over their own boots, and Todd is still fighting with his radio, which is now playing a weather report. I walk out slowly, hands where everyone can see them. My dog watching from under the porch, and I call back, "Morning." Quite the welcome committee for one broke rancher. "You are not a rancher," she fires back. "You hijacked our development. You stole from us." She lifts her bullhorn like she is directing a raid scene in a movie. Team A left flank, Team B cover the porch. They shuffle point their plastic rifles, and I raise my voice just enough. "Quick question, ma'am, before we get too dramatic here. Which judge signed your warrant?" The movement stutters. Marcus, her self-appointed sergeant with the party store badge, glances at her. Todd's radio, loud as ever, fills the quiet, with chance of showers this afternoon. "We do not need a warrant," Marissa says, her tone clipped. "This is a citizen's arrest under our HOA authority." "Interesting," I say, taking a step backward toward the barn. Slow, casual, like I am just rearranging the scene. "Second question, then. Under what law? Does Willow Ridge HOA have jurisdiction over land that is not inside Willow Ridge? Because last I checked, this ranch is not on your map. You can see the doubt start leaking into their faces." Mrs. Patterson whispers, "He is outside the gate right to the woman next to her," and Marcus frowns, like he suddenly realizes he never actually read the legal description of anything. I keep going. "Third question. Who trained you to do this? Where did you learn to wear badges from Amazon? Carry airsoft rifles, and storm a private property without a single real cop in sight?" Nobody answers. Somewhere a bird chirps. I jerk my thumb toward the open barn door. "Look, you came here for evidence, right? That is what she has been telling you. That I stole from your community. That I am hiding something. So let us make it simple. All the files are in the barn, contracts, bank statements. The boring stuff. you have probably never seen. If you are so sure I am the bad guy, come and get it. You could cut the tension with a knife. 8 of them peel off, heading back to the trucks, mumbling things about needing to check on the kids. And this does not feel right. But 7 stay glued to Marissa, like ducklings glued to the wrong mother. And they follow her into the barn, boots echoing on concrete. Inside it is cooler. The light slants in through high windows, picking up dust in the air. The new concrete floor looks smooth and solid, and none of them notice the faint seams around the center section where I am standing. They circle me, trying to look threatening, and Marissa steps in front, clipboard, tucked under her arm like a badge. All right, Ethan. Enough games. Where are the files? Where is the proof? I look past her at the faces around her people I have watched mowing lawns, walking dogs, carrying groceries, and I say, before I show you anything, humor me, who here has actually seen the HOA financials, not the little summary paragraph in the newsletter. I mean the actual numbers. Silence. A few headshakes. I nod, like I expected that. Okay then. Over the last 2 years, Willow Ridge has collected just over $2.3 million in dues and special assessments, which is a lot of potted plants and pool chairs. But funny thing, a few $100,000 of those dollars took a little detour through shell companies registered to people with the last name Grant. I start reading off names of accounts, half the room goes pale, and Marcus turns on Marissa. You never told us about missing money. You said this was about protecting us. She whirls on him, snapping. Do not let him rattle you. He is nobody, just a bitter man who beat us at an auction and found rumors online. I meet her eyes, hold them, and I can feel the floor humming under my boots. Sensors counting bodies, weight distribution, hitting the mark. No, I say quietly. I am not just some bitter ranch buyer, and I did not find rumors. Marissa, I followed bank records, subpoenaed statements, interviewed contractors. You overcharged, and the only reason I have been quiet is because you were useful. You kept showing me exactly how far you were willing to go. The hum turns into a low mechanical rumble, and before anyone can figure out where it is coming from, the section of floor under them begins to sink. It is slow enough not to knock anyone over, but fast enough to make their stomachs drop. The fake sheriff vests the radios. The plastic guns, all of it sliding down, as the hydraulic platform lowers them into the old silo, and Marissa's clipboard hits the concrete with a slap as she loses her balance and screams, "What are you doing? Stop this! Stop this!" 10 seconds later, they are at the bottom 12 feet down, staring up at a square of barn roof, and my face above it, emergency lights casting them in hard white ventilation, humming cameras, blinking. "Let us out!" Marissa shrieks, her voice bouncing off the walls. "This is illegal detention. This is kidnapping." The woman with pink nails is crying, chest heaving, saying, "I did not sign up for this. I thought we were just protecting the neighborhood," and Mrs. Patterson is clutching her helmet like a life raft. I take a breath and, yeah, there is a part of me that feels bad, seeing regular people scared like that. But there is another part that remembers every trembling hand opening a fine notice, every neighbor who felt sick to their stomach because of this woman. And that part is tired of watching bullies walk away clean. You are safe, I tell them. The air is clean. The lights are on. Nobody is getting hurt. But we are going to have a little reality check while we wait. I pull out my badge wallet, flip it open, and let the light hit the metal. My name is Special Agent Ethan Cole, Federal Financial Crimes, and this little stunt you just pulled turned your HOA drama into a federal case. You are being recorded, and in about 15 minutes, actual law enforcement is going to walk through that door with real gear and real authority. And then we are going to sort out who was confused, who was scared, and who was stealing from whom. You could hear a pin drop, then pink nails, just whispers. "Oh my God," over and over. Marcus mutters. I thought we were on the right side, and Marissa, who has spent 6 years barking orders at people who could not afford to fight back, finally looks genuinely afraid as she stares up at my badge and realizes she picked a fight with the one person in that county who has more authority than her. When the black SUVs rolled up and my team poured into the barn, moving like an actual trained unit, it was like the universe split in two for those neighbors above ground. You had the real thing. Below ground, you had their sad imitation. Agent Riley read them. Their rights, one by one. They got pulled up, harnessed, and handcuffed. And I watched their faces shift from confusion to understanding to this heavy, miserable shame when they realized they had been props in Marissa's show. 6 months later, I sat in the back of a federal courtroom and watched a judge sentence Marissa to 8 years in prison and millions in restitution, watched the same neighbors who once applauded her at HOA meetings sit there wondering how they had missed every red flag. And I will be honest with you, I did not feel triumphant. I just felt tired and a little sad that it had to go that far. So here is where I hand this over to you, because I know some people hear this story and say, "Good, she got what she deserved," and others say, "Man, you did not have to build a trap that was too much." And maybe both of those things can be true at the same time. Do you think I went too far building that sinking floor? Or was that the only way to make someone like her finally face consequences? And what about the neighbors who put on fake badges and marched up my driveway? Were they victims, accomplices, or both? If you have ever dealt with an HOA tyrant, a boss who hid behind rules, or any petty little king or queen who thought they owned you because they had a title, I would love to hear your story. So drop it in the comments. Tell me if I am the hero, the villain, or just a guy who got tired of watching people get bullied and decided to fight back in the only language power really understands: